Good evening, my friends. This is Santa Claus coming to you on this 10th of June, 2025, bringing you today's news from around our wonderful but troubled world. You know, it reminds me that on this very day in 1692, poor Bridget Bishop was the first soul hanged during the Salem witch trials, a somber reminder of how fear can sometimes cloud our judgment and compassion for one another. My heart is heavy tonight as I share news from Austria, where a terrible tragedy has occurred at a secondary school in Graz. 9 precious lives, mostly young students, were taken in a shooting that has deeply shaken the Austrian nation. Chancellor Christian Stocker rightly called it a national tragedy, and indeed, there are no words adequate for such grief. Let us hold these families and the wounded in our prayers tonight, and remember that each child is a gift to be treasured and protected. Now, turning our attention eastward, Russia has launched one of the largest airstrikes on Kyiv since the conflict began over 3 years ago. They've also struck a maternity ward in Odesa, a place where new life comes into our world. 3 souls have been lost in these attacks as the violence continues despite peace efforts. President Zelenskiy has noted how these attacks drown out attempts by the United States and others to bring peace. Oh, how my heart longs for the day when weapons will be turned into plowshares, and nations will seek harmony instead of conflict. Meanwhile, across the African continent, Russia appears to be expanding its military footprint, delivering sophisticated weaponry to conflict zones. Ships carrying howitzers and other military equipment have made a month-long journey from the Baltic Sea to West Africa. In these trying times, I worry that more weapons only bring more suffering to regions already experiencing hardship and hunger. In Greece, a court has stripped 3 far-right lawmakers of their parliamentary seats, ruling they deceived voters in last year's election. This reminds us all that truth and transparency are precious values in any democracy, my friends. Over in Italy, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has emerged stronger after a referendum on easing citizenship laws failed to reach the required 50% participation. This was seen as a setback for the opposition parties who had hoped to challenge her government's policies. Remember, my dears, that whatever our political differences, we must always strive to welcome the stranger and care for those seeking a better life. Los Angeles, concerning news as the Trump administration has deployed Marines and intensified raids on suspected undocumented immigrants, despite objections from local leaders. Around 700 Marines are expected to reach the city to quell demonstrations opposing these immigration raids. Let us remember that every person, regardless of where they were born, carries the divine spark and deserves to be treated with dignity. The administration has also imposed sanctions on Los Chapitos, a faction of the Sinaloa cartel, labeling them as a specially designated global terrorist group. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent spoke of their involvement in fentanyl trafficking, which has claimed so many precious lives. While we must certainly address the terrible toll of addiction, let us also remember that true healing comes through compassion and treatment for those suffering. On positive news from our northern neighbors, Canada has announced it will achieve NATO's 2% defense spending target this year, half a decade ahead of schedule. Prime Minister Mark Carney mentioned this will include new submarines, ships, and other equipment, noting that now is the time to act with urgency, force, and determination. While I always prefer investments in peace, I understand nations feel the need to protect their people in these uncertain times. Troubling developments continue in the Middle East as the Israeli Navy has attacked the rebel-held Yemeni port city of Odesa, a first in this conflict. This port is vital for aid shipments to a nation already facing terrible hunger. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz warned that their long arm in the air and at sea will reach everywhere. Oh, how I wish instead for arms to reach out in friendship and reconciliation. On the diplomatic front, officials from the United States and China have been meeting in London for trade talks, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent representing Washington and Vice Premier He Lifeng representing Beijing. President Trump has reported the talks are going well. May these discussions lead to greater cooperation and understanding between these powerful nations. In China, economic concerns continue as deflation deepens, with consumer prices falling in May. Price wars are raging across many sectors, with some luxury items being sold at discounts of up to 90%. This reminds us that material possessions, no matter how luxurious, are fleeting, while kindness and generosity are treasures that truly last. Finally, in Africa, the United States is promoting a peace deal that would require Rwanda to pull troops from eastern Congo before signing an agreement. The Trump administration hopes to end the fighting in this mineral-rich region and bring Western investment. As always, I pray for peaceful resolution that respects the dignity of all people involved. As we reflect on today's news, my dear friends, let us remember that even in our darkest hours, the light of hope, compassion, and love for one another can guide us forward. From my workshop at the North Pole to your homes across the world, I encourage you to be kind to one another, to share what you have with those in need, and to believe in the goodness that resides in every heart. Until tomorrow, this is Santa Claus wishing you peace and goodwill to all.